it's cool when you, the advisor, are also out running the races. And so if you're running a big mountain race, what was your nutrition plan? I mean, how did you tailor or customize your nutrition plan specifically for a race like Speedgoat? 11,000 feet, 50K, crazy grind. What did you do?
Yeah, good question. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I learn a lot through my schooling and research and stuff, but I think the best thing is just application to learn the best possible. Is this realistic to apply or not? So then I kind of try it myself. So for Speedgoat, starting at 6, it wasn't 6:30. It wasn't super early start. I was able to have a little breakfast before, and then just kind of planned on 100 grams of carbs per hour, which has taken me a while to build up to. But
what breakfast did you have, curiously?
Funny enough, I had really simple. I've even started to just take out the oatmeal. I like something pretty light now. I'll have a banana and these Trader Joe's. It's like a pre-made waffle, basically, with pearl sugar in there.
I know it. Yep.
Yeah, they're so good. They're so good. So I've been using those for a while as my pre-long run snack, and good on carbs, low fiber, and a banana. And then there's this strategy I've been using lately that's you pump sodium into your body right about an hour before the race too, and that helps increase your blood flow and get things moving. And so if you can do that, increase blood volume, you can also get oxygen moving a little bit better. So a pretty big hit of sodium in my water in the morning, and then I'm off to the races. And yeah, I mean, because it's really fast and pretty high intensity, I pretty much just relied on sports nutrition, liquid calories and gels. I had 3 chips, maybe a little piece of watermelon.
Literally 3 chips?
Yeah, just very 1, 2, small snacks.
Chips. Yes, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to tide over the tummy. And 100 was probably the most I could do for that long. It was just under 6 hours. So the longer, I would definitely want to start incorporating a little more of the snacking. But yeah, and then it might sound crazy, but yeah, a liter of water an hour. I've done some testing to see my sweat rate and sodium concentration. So I had all those numbers dialed, and pretty much just stuck with the plan, and it worked out pretty well. I actually started the race not feeling super great in nutrition. It's amazing how it can just get you there, even when you're not having the freshest day. It can really kind of push you more. So yeah, I mean, it was probably really, really smooth nutrition for that day. So yeah, being shorter in distance, you can almost always rely purely on the sports nutrition, but the longer you go, the more of that stuff you get sick of. So then the plan changes.
Okay, so I'm curious from your take. As I'm a guy who doesn't really. I'm a late adopter on all technology and a late adopter on all things fashion. So you see me out there, and I'm there to run, and I don't have the fancy, sweat device that you can put on you to assess your sweat, and then I guess you respond to what that readout is in terms of how much sodium you'll consume and all that sort of stuff. As a nutritionist in the ultra running space, are those things useful? If I was your client right now, would you say, hey, put one of those on so we can really customize your sodium? Does everybody need that? Is that for the elite? Who's that for?
Everybody needs that. I think it's to the point where, let's take out the guesswork. Even if you're just trying to improve a little bit, not knowing those numbers is a huge detriment to your performance. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The very least, I'd say the most important is the sweat rate, how much water you're losing in a run. You can do that through just testing your weight before and after a run. That one's pretty easy. It's the sodium concentration that's really tough. And you can oversalt, you can undersalt, and getting the salt just right can take time. And so getting those numbers through a wearable can be really helpful. So anybody that's really trying to improve, yes, it's an investment. It's $260, but unlimited reading in different environments is pretty cool. So I think it's worth it.
Are there multiple devices? Is there one device? Do you have one that you recommend or that you've had success with?
The H-Drop apparently has the best results in comparison to a lab. It still can be a little finicky still. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think they've like fully nailed it. Sometimes like I'll let a friend borrow it or something and readings are still kind of wild sometimes. So like you kind of have to give an average. You have to wear it a few times to get the best results. But yeah, H drop seems to be the best on the market right now.
So I think so. What's interesting from my perspective is that there's this reality that I could have been running ultras for 13 years at this point, and I could learn something from that. That's gonna that could dramatically, at least significantly, alter my performance out there.
100%. I mean, it's been
Wow.
huge for me. Like I've been. I mean, imagine like my sodium concentration is 1,500 milligrams per liter, and so like I have been undersalting a ton, and that's not to say you always have to hit 100% of that sodium concentration. You know, you can
Yeah.
get up to 50, even 50%. Sometimes can do the trick, but like I usually race with very little salt at all, like for the whole day, and so it's been super helpful to get enough salt. And that missing piece, I think people neglect how much salt can help. I mean, salt feels like a gel almost when you get it like right, and it just gives you tons of energy, and you're hydrating properly. Like after a while,
Yeah.
just water isn't going to be working. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, I would highly recommend it.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I'm signed up right now for the 75 miler they just introduced for Paris Eco Trail next year.
Nice.
But again, back to last year, your advice, like it was the first time. Again, I just usually just get out and start running, and that's been to my detriment. It's low performance, whatever. I'm not unhappy about it, but your advice last year going into carbs, that was just the most fun race I've ever had, wire to wire, by staying up on that stuff. So man, I'm stoked. So yeah, if I can improve again, if I can start testing my salt, and that actually gets me somewhere,
Oh yeah.
I'm pumped.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep it going.
So, all right, now let's look at bigger picture UTMB. By the time this will release pre-Leadville, and I know we've got some buddies running Leadville. Sam Losey's running Leadville.
Yeah.
My dude Taylor Bodine, Believe in the Run's running Leadville. Like people are running it. So I mean, applicable here. It's applicable to Leadville. It's applicable to UTMB. You know, fill in the blank. So many great American big mountain races, and French and European big mountain races. So in general, is there a way that you would generally, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm debating running Javelina 100 in the Arizona desert or UTMB, is there a broad category first that you go to and say, okay, if I was going to go desert, I'd go this way. Let's disregard that. So I'm going to go toward big mountain. Is there a broad approach that makes it different preparing for big mountain?
There are a few differences, but heat and altitude have a lot of similarities in what they do to you in terms of digestion. So, yeah, adaptation is going to be number one. And what's really cool that we're seeing more and more of is heat can have a similar effect to altitude training. So you can honestly do pretty similar prep for both. Let's say you're in Paris and you want to come over for or you want to go to UTMB, like you could actually get a pretty good stimulus hitting a sauna regimen.
Really?
Because it almost has this like EPO effect. You increase red blood cells. And so it's like, you're basically doing an altitude training by doing the heat training. Obviously both combined is going to give you more stimulus. So even in preparation, it's a very similar regimen. Heat's going to take, blood flow away from your GI tract. Altitude's going to do the same.
Wow.
Heat is going to dehydrate you faster. Altitude's going to do the same. So honestly, they're pretty similar. The biggest question is, where are you coming from? If you're someone in sea level, you're probably going to have a better chance at something hot. Whereas, if you're at sea level and you're going up to, say, to do hard rock, that's such a drastic change. But if you're someone who lives at 8,000 feet, hard rock could be more accessible than something like Javelina, because you're used to the high altitude, you're used to not having that much heat, and then doing something like a heat fast hot course is going to be much more difficult. So I think where their baseline is going to be kind of very indicative of which route they go, but there's actually a lot of overlap and similarities.
Why does altitude and heat, for that matter, pull blood out of the GI tract? What's altitude trying to do with that blood? Is it what's the use of that?
Yeah, so the main thing is the extremities. Even if we're just working out and running in general, more blood flow is going to the extremities. So the more intense, the more that blood flow goes to the extremities. When altitude's involved, more of that's going to your brain. And then when heat's involved, more of that's going to the top of your skin. You're getting more flow to the skin to cool you off. And so both occasions you're getting less blood flow to the stomach, which can result in nausea, stomach upset, all those things.
So what does your stomach do with the blood? I mean, like if you're not going through that intensity and the stomach and your blood is, normally moving through your gut, is the blood in some way working to digest? Is that what the blood, so I'm trying to understand what it would do in a non-stressful environment. So it makes more sense to me as it pulls away.
100%. Yeah. So oxygen is really vital in bringing those nutrients out of the stomach into the bloodstream. Right. So, more blood flow means that those nutrients. Oh no, it's totally good. Yeah. I mean, more blood flow means you're optimizing the nutrient pull from the GI system and getting it around your body. But less blood flow means those nutrients are just not going to be able to get around your body quite as easily. So not only the amount, but also the speed at which it's getting around your body can be inhibited.
Okay. And is there any element? So I think I think this is true, that I learned. So urine, by the time you drink it and before you pee it out, in between those two moments, all that liquid's going through your blood. Is this true?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, first off, that's just wild to me. But second, if the blood then is not in the area where you're even drinking the fluid, one of the phenomena that I'm wondering about, like when I'm out, I remember attempting Wasatch, and all day is a hot day. I'm drinking a ton. And I don't pee once, and then the night comes and it cools, and I just can't stop peeing. Like, is that because the blood is like? And at that point, I'm also moving much slower, way less stress, less heat, less climbing. So now that's the blood flow is back in my belly, and is that in any way impact? Is that why I'm peeing again?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other things going on while you're running that the water is being used up a lot more than it would at rest. And so you're probably a bit dehydrated if you're not having to pee during running.
Yeah.
But then there's also, you don't want to be peeing all the time. You can also overhydrate without enough salt. So yeah, there's all these weird mechanisms that go on, and we can get into that in altitude too, that are going to cause you to pee more than less. Do you want to just dive into that aspect too?
Yeah. Perfect.
So yeah, when you're at altitude, your respiratory rate is going higher. Like you're somewhat hyperventilating in a way because you're not getting enough oxygen, right? And so that hyperventilation causes that you're not able to push out CO2 as efficiently. And so your blood is becoming too alkaline. And so bicarbonate is this chemical that goes into your bloodstream and helps neutralize your blood. It makes it the right pH balance. But with bicarbonate comes water. And so you're going to end up peeing more at altitude because of that. You're basically trying to increase blood flow and blood volume again. And then you suppress anti-diuretic hormone from the kidneys. And so you're basically just you're creating more of a diuretic response at altitude, in response to altitude. So not only are you going to be peeing more, but you're also going to be losing more, because every time you breathe, you're losing fluid, you're losing vapor, right? And so you're breathing harder at higher altitudes because you're getting less oxygen. So it's like this double whammy. And then third is it's because it's drier at high altitudes. You don't see that you're sweating. Like it's just kind of like dry. And so you don't realize how much you're losing. So hydration is like, it's you need a lot more of it at altitude than you would normally. And so it's really critical to be getting enough fluid. You may even have to go, 1.5 times what your normal ingestion rate is because of these changes at altitude that happen.
Wow. Okay. It's sneaky to me. If I think about running in the heat of the desert, I have all of this evidence that I need to be drinking more, namely the amount of sweat. So what you're saying is that at altitude, you can be sub-zero temperatures and still be stressing your body the same way that heat stresses it in the desert?
Oh, that's hard to like compare the two at lower temperature. It's hard to say, but you are stressing it in a very similar manner. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go to UTMB, and you've got a client. Let's say you've got a client running I don't know. I think there's like 50 different distances. I don't even know all the distances, but let's look at OCC 50K, CCC 100K, and UTMB 172K, 100 miles. How are you looking at, let's go 50K in the Alps, crazy high altitude, tons of gain. We kind of already touched on this some. It's probably similar to Speedgoat. How are you advising that client to think about that race and to make sure they're prepared on race day? Assume you only get to talk. This is interesting. Assume you only get to talk to them 2 days before the race, and they just like, Jesse, I'm worried. What do I need to do to make sure I'm good for this race?
Yeah. I would take sufficient amounts of fluid. That's going to be like the biggest emphasis I'm going to have with them is like you really need to be on top of fluids, and even if you're not thirsty, you've got to be pounding a little more fluid than you're used to. Ideally, there's more time to prep the stomach for that, but yeah, if they're calling me right before, that would be a conversation of fluids. I would say probably sticking mostly to sports nutrition as well, primarily liquid calories, both in the 50K and 100-mile UTMB, just because those are the simplest to digest. It's just part of a liquid. It's just so much easier to assimilate than even a gel could be. So I'd probably do majority of their nutrition plan like in liquid form. I would also encourage, in those mountain races, look at the aid stations. Like, do your research in splits. Because just because an aid station is 6 miles away, that could be 2 hours, depending on the course and your ability. Like, that's the difference between something like Javelina and a mountain high altitude race. Is like, oh, it's pretty much flat at Javelina with I think like 1 or 2 climbs in the loop. I kind of have a pretty good estimate of how long 6 miles is going to take. Throw that all out the window when you're in a big mountain race. That could take way longer. So like do your research, because if you're like, oh, I'll just fill up 1 bottle at the aid station, the next one's 6 miles away, no problem. I've done this countless of times in running, and this is why I'm like, please don't do this. Look at the course, look at the splits, understand that this is a mountain course. You could be doing 20-minute miles for part of that race. Be prepared. Get as much as you can from certain aid stations if you know it's going to be an uphill grind. Sure, if it's some quick downhill section, 6 miles, all right, plan on 45 minutes. But if it's an uphill grind, you're going to have to estimate something like, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, worst case, in crazy situations. So
can someone go from, if they've not done much research on nutrition, they haven't been listening to the episodes, don't follow you, and they're just kind of doing whatever during their training 2 days before, could they do just fine on a liquid diet? I mean, is there any adjustment period in order to, be acclimated, or I don't know the right word, to that liquid in order to be able to pull off getting 100% of your calories over, 6 to 8 hours from liquid? Is there any adjustment necessary to be able to do that?
The amount is necessary to train for, but typically people respond pretty well to liquid calories. Like if you were to say, I want you to do 100 calories or 100 grams an hour during your race, but you've never had training, then that's going to be problematic.
That's going to be the hard part. Yeah, because we talked on previous episodes about, like getting your body loaded with carbs, getting used to adjusting the carbs, and then also moving into, some of the elite athletes, they'll do like massive carb loading the week before to make space for all of the carbs that they'll do. So carbs, maybe not, but calories, you're saying calories in general, you can switch to liquid and have a pretty, most of the time you would expect some success with that adjustment, even late notice.
Most people I work with do fine. There are some outliers that like just for some reason liquid calories just don't jive as well. We work on the concentration of it. With these higher carb numbers, a lot of times we have to kind of push that concentration a little higher. So a lot of people, it'll be like, all right, let's just kind of dilute this a little bit more and see if it works.
Yeah.
But it works for most people.
I mean, does your advice change as we increase the mileage? I mean, it's a matter of just more, doing more of the same for longer.
It does change. It does change because realistically sticking to that sports nutrition stuff is really hard to do. I mean, I think
Good point.
It's very subjective, but the 10-hour mark, even for me, I've done 2 races right under 6 hours this year, and 6 hours pushing those higher carb amounts. I don't know if I can go much longer, really. Like it's starting to get a little more difficult. So what I'd probably do in a longer ultra, I could train the gut to still handle 100 grams per hour of carbs, but I think realistically going down a little bit to like 80. And then what's really cool that they've been doing at UTMB is they've been recording their crew at, I think, Courmayeur. So something like halfway through the race for them, they're coming in and they're asking their crew, like, okay, what do you have set up for their food? What are they eating? I really like this little addition that they've done.
Yeah.
And everybody's doing like a quick little meal during UTMB, which I think is really smart too, because
of like whole foods.
Yeah. So like Killian was just like rice or sweet potato or something, and Zach Miller, I think, was the only one who just had like Stroop waffles and like still just loving the sports nutrition, like a few more goo gels.
Yeah.
But they all had like, some of them were like pizza. Some of them were like healthy foods that were, again, like sweet potato and really simple carbs. Others like kind of junk food. Others like just continuing with the gels. But for the most part, everyone's sitting down and taking some time with a meal. I think for the majority of people, if your event is over 20 hours, like that is going to be a critical part of the race. And I encourage people to do that. You're just getting so sick of the sugar. We're not built to just handle sugar for that long and only sugar. Do I think people can train to that? Yes. Western states, I would guess the top 10 we're all doing just sports nutrition, but that's 14 to 16 hours on the men and female side, male and female side. So like 16 hours, you could probably get away with it. For me, like past 10, I'm starting to struggle. Yes, it can be trained, but once you're starting to look at 20 plus hours, like you got to get something to settle your stomach, because just constant sugar may just like end up making you feel sick, and what we call gut rot, of just like too much sugar in the stomach, and you start feeling like you just can't do it anymore. So I recommend kind of like either micro meals along the way, depending on how long you're going to be out there, or just like this, like, and it shouldn't be too big either, because then you can also have too much volume in your gut and feel sick. So either these micro meals or like one kind of somewhat bigger meal, and then just like continue back to it's just kind of like a nice little reset for the palate.
Yeah.
As well as the GI system.
Yeah. For me, I think about, I mean, if I was running 100, which I was extrapolating your 50K advice to the 100, not thinking about that, thinking, man, there's just a time where I feel like I just want some weight in my stomach. That's why I was worried, like, the liquid, can you transition? But yeah, to save the micro meals along the way. There's one time I was running Zion 100, and I got a kick out of this dude. He'd been running 100 milers for decades, and he had like this whole buffet. His wife had set up this whole buffet, and he made like a big like vegetarian taco, and he sat there for a long time. He's like, been doing these things forever. I'm not in a hurry, and I want to eat. I'm part of this is how much fun I like eating like this. And so he just took his time. Tons of avocado. I mean, it's just massive. So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what I'd rather do, but I also like, I catch myself craving an avocado or, stuff that just, I need weight.
Yeah. 100% normal. And I think it's so critical, and especially something like UTMB. So again, being specific about this race, there's a lot of hiking. So like you have time to, maybe you try to strategize like Courmayeur. There's a huge climb out of Courmayeur. So everybody's like, okay, I'm going to have my meal here because, if I just have time to digest. Where like Javelin 100, where it's just like running the whole time, you may want to like be very careful about how much of that extra volume you're adding, all that jostling and running. Western States, same thing. Yeah. And considering the heat, like you may want to keep those meals really like to aid station snacks. Like run, rabbit, run. I'm hoping to do that 18 and a half to 20 hours. I'm not probably going to have a full meal, but I'm going to be nibbling on aid station foods. Like I said, those kind of micro snacks, micro meals along the way, because it is mostly running the whole way. So depending on the context of the race, you can either kind of fill up the belly more or try to keep it pretty light.
Yeah. And that's a good point. So if you're knowing your course, to your earlier advice, you know your course, you see the big climbs, that's when you could eat some more substantial food, because on the climb compared to the running, is it it's the jostling? Is there more blood flow that's going to the stomach because your heart rate's a lot lower practically, unless you're really pushing hard up that hill? Like, is it just all of the factors that make it hard to digest when running flat or downhill? Those factors aren't as stressful on the uphill, though. You know, you're burning out your quads and you are doing some damage, but it's but the damage you're doing is also conducive to digesting food.
Yeah, exactly. And the jostling is just lower. Like unfortunately, we don't have this big, I mean, our ribs kind of help, but we don't have some big cage that really helps our GI system not bounce around. And so unfortunately, if you're bombing downhill or on flats, like things are moving quite a bit, and that makes you want to throw up or something. But so if you're going on a long uphill, it's like that jostling's pretty minimal. That's why cyclists are known to handle. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's why it makes it hard, because cyclists are able to handle more carbs per hour than runners. It'll always be that way because they're just like stable on a bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's interesting. Okay. So even longer than like all that advice could apply from 100K up to 200 plus miles. Like, or is there anything unique as you're getting up to 100 from 100K? Or is it just, what I'm hearing, if that were me, is that liquid calories and whole foods and substantial stuff strategically placed through the race, the longer it gets, is the way to think.
Yeah. Yep. For most people. And once you start getting into 200 plus, the nice thing about 100, you're done. It's usually the same day. You start eating, you start recovering. That's, you're still going to feel jacked, but 200 is where like catabolism is probably happening pretty bad, where you're kind of breaking down your muscle and putting yourself at more risk. And so the meals probably have to be a bit more substantial. I had a fun time following Cocodona and seeing what a lot of them were doing, and like they're full on buffeting style from what it looks like, because they have to. Like I said, when you're in a caloric deficit for a 100-mile race, for sure, there's no way you're going to make up the calories you're burning. Yeah. 200, same thing. But you're going to try to get a little closer. You're going to try to make up more of those calories. And that's when you start mixing in more macronutrients. That's where like fat and protein could actually be helpful for these 200 plus. Fat and protein are typically pretty hard to digest at higher speeds. So if you're walking a lot of a 200, you can probably incorporate some of those helpful macronutrients. But the 100 and less, probably okay to just stick to carbs. But like once you start to get 200 plus, take advantage of a little protein and fat as well, and like real food.
That's interesting. Is there anything as it relates to altitude sickness? Let's say I am coming from Paris to there, or even if you're going from anywhere in in America to Leadville, you're making a big jump. Can nutrition in any way support altitude sickness, or is altitude sickness completely separated from nutrition in every way?
Yeah, it's a pretty independent issue that nutrition can't really solve if you've done no adaptation. Obviously, fluids are going to help a lot, but it's something that if you haven't adjusted, it's like nutrition can help you a little, but it's not going to like resolve altitude sickness necessarily.
I'd always heard with Leadville that either you want to show up the day before or like 3 weeks before, but anywhere in between, you're opening yourself up to the altitude sickness. Do you have any insight or expertise on altitude sickness?
Yeah, I mean, the company I work with, Evoke Coaching, we do work with a lot of mountaineers and skimo. That's right. And so like a lot of the guides have educated us on this, and like, one day won't do anything. You should, 2 weeks is the optimal window to get enough increase in red blood cells to handle the change. We go back and forth on hypoxic tents. So you can do, tents where you're kind of simulating altitude, the struggle at home. Yeah. issue there is you're not sleeping very well because you're sleeping in the tent. And so recovery's impaired, training's impaired. We typically recommend against that. But if you can get out to the course, 2 weeks or more, 3 weeks is great. You know, the more the better. You can do pretty well in acclimatizing, but one day before is probably going to be a disaster. And that's what's so hard. That's why I eventually just pulled out of trying to get into hard rock, because I'm never going to be able to get there 2 weeks before.
To do that.
It would just be a bummer. It would for sure be a subpar performance, and I would just rather not do that. So it's sad, but that's the thing, is if you're doing high altitude, you've got to, if you're going to get your best performance, you've got to have those accommodations to be able to go out super early, which if you've noticed, most of the pros are already out in Chamonix, just like looping around the course. This happens more and more every year. I've noticed like they're just always like, how convenient is that? Take your family 3 weeks early. Hey, a month early. Why not? You just train it nonstop.
Well, to me, it always exposes who's got the bigger contracts at any given time. I mean, sponsors are paying, Hoka, Solomon, they're doing like these training camps. And so they're bringing all the athletes out, they're providing housing, and they're doing all that. I don't know how. I'm surprised, frankly, at how many people are able to pull that off. And I know some people are like I did an interview with Allison Baca at Hoka. She was taking vacation time from her day job, and she's a mom, and taken to go to that camp because she's going to come back and go for CCC. I'm blown away at what people are able to do in terms of the early course recon, and then it sounds like also there's probably some acclimation that they're strategically going for as well. Yeah,
it's a huge advantage, I'd say, and it's almost kind of unfair to those who can't have that luxury, but it is what it is. That's where sports get into. The professionals are just going to have that extra ability to do those things.
Yeah. When is Run Rabbit?
Just under 5 weeks now, September 14th, I think. Okay. And that's actually, I've done it twice. Last year I DNF'd.
I remember that.
My first DNF 100. So I'm kind of like, I got to go back, but that's a pretty, you're hitting 10K for a decent amount, 9 and 10K for a decent amount of that race. So it is kind of considered higher altitude, and breathing always becomes a struggle near the end of that one. So this is kind of refreshing me on what I need to do.
What you're going to be doing.
Yeah. And I'm a lot of broth, as kind of those easy calories. And those little micro meals along the way.
Nice. Any other, anyone else in like your training crew running that with you? Is Cody Robinson running that?
He is. Yep.
That's what I thought. Nice.
Yep. Yeah. And then actually someone I'm coaching here, Reed Snyderman, he's a crusher. Look out for him. So he's racing that as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, man. Thank you for joining me on this today. I always take so much away from these conversations, and I know that everyone else does too. These are some of the most popular episodes that I put out. And so, man, I'm stoked for UTMB, everyone running Leadville this weekend, you doing Run Rabbit Run. Like, man, it's the good season of running right now.
It is the good time. Things are cooling off a little bit over here in Salt Lake, and get adjusted to heat, get adjusted to altitude, test your nutrition plenty of time in advance before a race. If there's any takeaway, test it.
Get that H drop, and get that can give you a crazy competitive advantage. I'm interested.
Do it.
All right, man. All right, let's do this again.
Thanks so much, Josh. Appreciate it.
See you.